From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Mixed Up Sports on mixedupsports.com, powered by twitch.tv. Here on this Friday, it is the 11th day of March 2016. Cruiser Ryan out today. Nick Sexton, am I right? How you doing, bud?
Doing great.
As we get set to go here today, the big story obviously this week is the start of NFL free agency. But one of the biggest moves was made today, as we now know who will quarterback the defending champion Denver Broncos, and that will be former Jet quarterback, former Eagles quarterback, Mark Sanchez.
I don't know if I would say he's their fix at quarterback to replace Peyton Manning or Brock Osweiler. I think he might. I think this is kind of their last resort type of deal because if unless they couldn't get anything done with any other quarterback, I don't think they'd go with Mark Sanchez. I don't know. I mean, with the defense they have, you might Peyton Manning proof you don't need that great of a quarterback to take this team to the championship. I mean, he threw what 17 interceptions last year, and so even then they were still nearly undefeated. So not much of a quarterback is needed to kind of to quarterback this team, and so maybe Sanchez is the fix at quarterback, but I do think that they're going to try and get some other deal done with either Kaepernick or RG3, anyone out there.
Well, the reports are now that RG3 is visiting with the Jets, but to this Sanchez deal, you look at who's out there. You have We've heard a lot about movement of Case Keenum, but that's going to take a first round pick, and when you're picking last in the first round, it's essentially a second rounder, so you're not going to get Case Keenum. Then you have uh, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who we assume is going to the Jets. They're still very far apart on that, and we'll get to that in a moment. Um, Robert Griffin, who hasn't played in a year and a half, and when he did, and the last time he did, he was getting benched. Um, uh, TJ Yates, who, I mean, come on, really, you're not going to get TJ Yates. Johnny Manziel, which, again, come on, you're not going to get Manziel. Colin Kaepernick, who already said he wants to go to Cleveland. So, I mean, this is definitely, I think, the best choice Denver could have made. I mean, Sanchez was a very, very solid backup in place of Sam Bradford out in Philadelphia. I don't see this being a bad move at all. It's definitely not Brock Osweiler, but it's not a bad move at all.
I mean, like I said before, you don't need much of a quarterback to take this team pretty far in the playoffs. So it could work out for him, but I think that this team would obviously do better with a better quarterback. But even Kaepernick or RG3, if they can lure him away from if they can win the bidding war over RG3, I think he can play decently in this Broncos offense. But I mean, if it gets down to a point where you just need to kind of where no other options are there, and you need someone to back up Sanchez, I wouldn't trust Simeon. Whoever, I think it's Trevor Simeon, their I
Yeah.
guess yeah, their backup quarterback now. I mean, it gets down to it. You got John Elway, who is obviously a great quarterback when he played, and then you got Von Miller, who went to Texas A&M. Could Johnny be going to Denver?
I think Manziel is, as far as NFL circles go, I think Manziel is just too far gone to to get another shot in the NFL. I really do. I think he's way too far gone. He's proving himself to be uncontrollable is his biggest problem right now. He is uncontrollable, and I think maybe even worse, unwilling to change. He has showed no willingness to change. It's not like, okay, I'm trying to change, I keep slipping back. No, he's just going out and doing whatever he wants to do, and that's gonna get him kicked out of the NFL for sure.
Yeah, I mean, but first I want to preface that with, I mean, when Johnny Manziel came into the league, he was pretty much doomed from the start. I mean, with all the hype surrounding him as Cleveland Browns fans were donning him as the
Fault of
Browns.
major media.
Yeah, they were donning him as the savior of the Browns. But I mean, you look
No
at the
one's
Browns
saving that team.
roster then. He didn't really have any weapons besides Josh Gordon, who's, you know,
Who was suspended last year?
yeah. They didn't really have any weapons for him to throw to. He was doomed from the start. The media was all over him. He couldn't get away from them, at any point. And so, I mean, I'm not justifying this saying that he's a perfect quarterback and that,
No, and I definitely agree with you that the media was definitely all over him, and the media definitely played a major role in hyping Manziel up. They were hyping him up as a freshman after he beat Alabama. That's when the whole Manziel, the whole Johnny Football thing really started, was when he was a freshman at A&M after he beat Alabama. But but there's a point where you can't say the media is the reason he keeps going to all these clubs. You can't say the media is the reason why he went in costume to Vegas during Cleveland's last game of the season. That's media is not the reason for that. That's him.
yeah, I mean, obviously there's fault on his part for a lot of this. But I mean, also Cleveland, they barely gave him a shot to be the starting quarterback. I mean, they started Josh McCown over him, even though I mean Josh McCown, they needed to find out if they really could, I mean, I don't know if there's any veterans in the Browns locker room that ever tried to mentor Johnny Manziel, or if he just was.
Probably not. I mean, you got to think this is a guy who is proven that he's uncontrollable. I guarantee if somebody did, he just shrugged it off. He just shrugged it off.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because he was a real talent coming out of college. I mean, he had a possibility of getting into the, or I mean, not a possibility. He had a possibility, I guess, of being a great quarterback in the NFL. But I mean, like we've mentioned before on the show, he's kind of ruined his chance with just with all his antics.
And speaking of Josh McCown, he played 8 games last year, 2,100 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He plays a full year at that rate. He's 4,200 yards, 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's not a bad year. That's not a bad year at all for McCown.
I mean, it wasn't a bad year, but he's not their, he's not
No,
their
I'm saying
quarterback
I'm
fix.
just saying if he would have played the full season, 24 touchdowns to 8 intercepts. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how many small teams wouldn't take that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of this starts with they need to, the Browns went through the build through the draft technique, but I mean, I don't know what the GM's doing over there because
They need stability, is what they need. When you have 3 or 4 different GMs over a 6-year period, and even more coaches, and even more head coaches than that going through the system, there's no stability there. You're never going to succeed in that environment.
I mean, you think about it, who they'd got from the draft. They have Joe Batonio and Joe Thomas who are still on the team, but then you got Travis Benjamin, Tashawn Gibson, Alex Mack, all these
Travis
guys.
Benjamin actually just signed a contract with your Chargers, by the way.
I'm saying that they lost them all through free agency.
Hmm.
I am glad Benjamin's with the Chargers. Hopefully he can get more than I think we had 11 punt return yards all season. So hopefully he can improve that. But I mean, if you're going to build through the draft, you have to keep these guys here. You have to pay them. I mean, I don't know what's going through their minds.
There are certain situations to where no amount of money in the world. If you're playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars 3 years ago when they were 1-15,
Yeah.
there's no amount of money in the world that's going to make a good player with a lot of upside say, you know what, I'm going to stay with this team. This team has absolutely nothing to do, and there's nothing going on right now. There's no upside in the future. I'm staying here. No, you're gonna split.
Yeah, I mean, if you are a Cleveland Browns fan, it's going to be about 3 to 4 years until you have a winning record in this league, which is, I mean, that's got to be rough.
I mean, and of course, then you leave Johnny Manziel now free agent. Congratulations, yay for him. You're probably never going to play another game in the NFL. And it was also a perfect excuse to start burning jerseys, as people in Cleveland tend to take a lot of pride in doing. We go from now losing teams and teams that really aren't doing much of anything to teams that are doing a bunch. And of course, I'm talking about my New York Giants here, who went off the day free agency went, and it looked like it was going to start bad when you see the Giants re-sign Jason Pierre-Paul to a 1 year, $10.5 million contract, which for a guy with one hand, I mean, really, that was a little foolish, even from my standpoint. He did say, I think today, he said he's going to play next year without the club. He's going to try to figure out a way to play without the club. And then the Giants just went off, getting Janoris Jenkins, who is the best cornerback on the market. You get Snacks Harrison, a defensive tackle from the New York Jets, an absolute run-stopping defensive tackle. And then the big splash, 5 years, $85 million to Olivier Vernon to essentially finish the reinventing of the defensive line. They signed Keenan Robinson today. They've renegotiated their contract with Victor Cruz, and now they're looking at former Seattle offensive lineman Okung. The Giants had $55 million to spend, and they are spending it.
I mean, they are making some moves. I'll give them that, but I'm sorry, but it just doesn't make that much sense to sign Damon Harrison, who, yeah, he's a great run stopper, but you have Jonathan Hankins, who filled that position where he's a run stopper. Then you bring in Harrison, you have two nose tackles that would fit in a 3-4 system, and you're going to plug them in where they need to, where, they kind of need to be dual threats where they can rush the passer as well as stop the run. I mean,
Hankins can do both. He's not just he's a better run stopper than he is a pass rusher. But when you see a guy like Snacks, and when you see how bad the Giants were on rush defense last year, 22nd in the league in rush defense, giving up 121.5 yards a game, that you need to help stop the rush. You have the two run stoppers in the middle, and then you have the two pass rushers on the side.
Yeah, but I mean, with Jason Pierre-Paul, he's nearly useless stopping the run with one hand. All you have to do is run to the outside.
He's a pass rusher.
I know, I'm saying, but if teams just run to the outside, to Pierre-Paul's side, Harrison or Hankins, they're not going to be over there to stop the run.
The guy had 60-some-odd tackles last year, though.
I mean, I don't know. They are,
and he said he's going to play without the club this year. So I don't know, that'll help him grab a little bit. But I mean, it'll make a little bit of a difference. The guy, he had 26 tackles this season, 1 sack. I mean, he wasn't completely useless out there last year.
But I mean, without the club, we'll see how much of a difference that'll make. But also, what I want to go to is with Olivier Vernon. I mean, it was kind of an unfortunate situation for you guys, as you were in a bidding war with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think came into free agency with about $80 million in cap space or something. So I mean, they had to get to a certain spending floor, so they were just throwing money at free agents. So the fact that you were in a bidding war with them,
Jackson, they just signed Prince Amukamara today.
Yeah, I mean, with Olivier Vernon, 5 years, $85 million. I mean, that is.
And when you get when you get into a bidding war like that, I mean, they signed Ivory 5 years, $32 million, which is something the Jets never would have done. And they signed who was their big signing? I keep forgetting his first name.
They got Tashawn Gibson from the Browns.
No, that's not who I was talking about. Jackson, the defensive tackle.
Defensive tackle.
I keep forgetting his first name.
Malik Jackson.
Yeah, Malik Jackson. Yeah, that and Mario Williams going to Miami. I mean, that, and you're also playing with not only are you bidding against a team that has more money to spend, you're also bidding against a team that can say, hey, listen, we're going to give you $60 million, and another team, we're going to give you 60 million compared to the other team that's going to give you maybe 65. But remember, if you come to us, you don't have to pay a state tax. So that makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, also, no offense to your Giants, but Jacksonville, with all their moves they've made, they seem to be in a pretty good position with Blake Bortles, Allen Robinson, Alan
Oh, they've
Hearns.
definitely moved up.
They are,
I would, if I were Houston, if I were Indianapolis, I would be scared of the Jacksonville Jaguars next year.
and then you got Tennessee, who obviously they have uh, one of the best rookie quarterbacks last year,
Mm,
uh, in Marcus Mariota, and then you pair him up with DeMarco Murray, who they got for a fourth round pick,
yep.
just swapping fourth round picks of the Eagles. I mean, that is a steal if he's in the right offense. Because I mean, he was just not a good fit in the Eagles' offense. So putting him in the Titans' offense, if they can use him correctly, he could be back to his form that he was in his last year with Dallas.
Like I said, DeMarco Murray he had what, 3 yards in his first 3 games in
Yeah,
Philadelphia last
it
year is
it was
absolutely
pitiful.
horrendous.
But I mean, if he gets back to that Dallas form or anything close to that, that is an absolute steal, the steal of the century for the Titans.
It absolutely would be. I mentioned the Jets before, and this is the situation that the Jets find themselves in right now. They lose Chris Ivory to the aforementioned Jaguars. They re-sign Powell, and they get Matt Forte. I believe, what was it, $8 million over 3 years? $8 million a year over 3 years for Forte. So they definitely made that move work. They're meeting with Robert Griffin today in the only thing I can consider that being is a power move to say, listen, to go to Fitzpatrick, who rumors are they're miles apart in their negotiations, for the Jets to say, listen, we have another quarterback who we are interested in. You're not going to get this kind of money. This guy will play for us cheaper. Bring your number down. We'll try to go up to meet you, and you can be a quarterback, and you can quarterback the Jets next season. It makes absolutely no sense for the New York Jets to let Ryan Fitzpatrick walk away off of the year that he had last year. 31 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. He had he had thrown over 4,000 yards. He was set a Jet record for touchdown passes. Had 2 receivers in the 1,000-yard range. First time that's happened since 1998. It makes absolutely zero sense for the Jets to let Fitzpatrick walk at this point.
What even makes less sense is for Ryan Fitzpatrick to walk away from what he's got. I mean, like you mentioned, he had one of his best years in his career last year. He has Brandon Marshall, he's got Eric Decker, and now they bring in Matt Forte, who's a great pass blocker at the halfback spot, great pass
That
catcher,
Yeah, exactly.
and a still a great running back, one of the top running backs in the league. I mean, he's got some great pieces, especially with a defense anchored by Muhammad Wilkerson and Sheldon Richardson. I mean, it makes no sense for him to walk away. I don't see a better fit for him pretty much anywhere.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but because being surrounded by the world of New York sports like I usually am, you've heard so much about the Jets over the last few years, really ever since Sanchez left, the year Sanchez left, of how the Jets being a joke and how they're a laughing stock and they're such a terrible team. I cannot believe I'm going to say this after being surrounded by that for 5 straight years, but Fitzpatrick isn't going to get a better team than this. This is a team that was literally 1 win away from a playoff spot last year. You just name the targets he has. He's not going to get a better spot than this.
Yeah, I mean, with Brandon Marshall, he's had one of the best years of his career with being such a great red zone threat for him. I mean,
Hmm.
I I don't see a better fit. Maybe the Broncos if they're willing to pay him that much, but I mean,
They just got Sanchez. They won't do it.
yeah, it's I don't know where Fitzpatrick is thinking he's going to go other than the Jets. Maybe he's just trying to wait it out and see if the Jets will kind of fold and then give him the money he wants. I can't see
I
any
don't.
way this works
The
out for
Jets aren't. The
Fitzpatrick.
Jets really aren't in a position to fold. And sure, they lost Antonio. Sure, they let Antonio Cromartie walk, and they let Chris Ivory walk, which they spent on Forte. But when they can't afford to go up to his number because after last year's spending spree, and the Giants are going to go through this next season. After last year's spending spree for the Jets, they are packed so close to the cap. They really cannot afford to give him what he wants, and then that'll be pretty much it. If they do for a 1 year deal, which is what he's going to get.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be a Jet by the end of
I do too.
free agency, but it's just a matter of when because I haven't really heard any other teams in the mix for Fitzpatrick,
Mm-mm.
and it's just a matter of how long it will take for him to realize that he's not getting the money he wants. The Jets can't, like you mentioned, the Jets can't afford to give him that money, and he's just got to kind of, you know, take a take the money that they're offering him because he's not getting anything better.
Take the money and run. Back after this. Don't go away.